All right, everyone, welcome back to an episode of the Walkoff. We have our World Series episode today, or World Series episode one of two. So we also have a special guest with us today, Justin Randell. Justin, how's it? We've had you on the Walkoff before. How does it feel
Yeah,
to be
it's
back?
been a really long time since like the last time I was on the show with you guys. I don't remember when did I do it? Was it during like the
I think the
first
WBC
the WBC? That's right. That's right.
hmm
Opening
Yeah.
day. Opening day, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, we did opening day. I remember
Yeah,
that.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, but overall, I'm excited to be back. I like being part of this stuff and I'm a big baseball guy, so it's fun to talk about it with people that I know and go to school with. So I'm excited.
Yeah, baseball's a great sport. I mean, we talk about it every week, so gotta love it. And of course, I'm always joined with the amazing Anthony Walsh. Anthony, another week. How we doing?
Another week, that's right. And we got some World Series baseball going on. We got football heating up. It's a good time for sports. I'm excited.
It is a good time for sports. It's like the perfect time right now. Basketball's starting, hockey started already, football's midway through, and baseball's almost over. So the World Series has started. We talked about it last time. Game one came around. So basically, we've only seen two games so far. Game three is tonight. So I say we just jump right in. So what happened so far? So game one was exciting. I mean, it almost felt a little poetic. It was perfect to every detail. Diamondbacks score in the first three innings. I apologize. They score in the third, fourth, and fifth to take the lead against Texas, who got the two runs in the first off of, a Evan Carter double. We've seen this name so many times so far this playoff. He's been having he's been having historic numbers, and especially for a guy that we didn't even say his name once during the regular season. So it's been very exciting to watch him. And he has the double, his seventh of the postseason.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Evan Carter's a guy that we haven't even. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. He was brought up in the middle of the season, right?
I believe so.
Believe
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
towards the end, like later.
crazy. I mean, for a guy, very rarely do guys come up do that well. In the regular season, let alone here in the each level of the playoffs. So good for him and good for the Rangers.
It's been, I mean, watching him play has been so exciting this postseason because we've seen rookies before. I know last year the Phillies had a bunch of rookies on their team that Bryson Stott was one of them that just great player in the regular season, but struggled during the postseason. And that happens again. We've seen a lot of players do that. Rangers, have really stayed pretty consistent. I mean, Evan Carter has been insane. And having a Adolis Garcia on that team, it seems like this team's electric. But anyways, then we see a triple in the third inning to tie everything up at two from who else but Corbin Carroll. Can you say anything more about this guy? He's been electric this entire postseason. Not to even mention this all 162.
Go ahead, Justin. Got to hear from
Oh,
you.
I thought you were gonna go first, and I'm gonna go next. But yeah, no, yeah, Corbin Carroll is just bad. He's just such a fun talent. Like he was unbelievable during the regular season as usual. Amongst the leaders in steals. I think he had what, like 50, 55 or something around there,
I would need to check the number,
roughly.
but definitely close to that.
Around that number. But just in general, he's just so fun to watch. Like he makes so many great plays in right field. Like he's just such a great talent. And recalling to the last time when I was on with you guys, we obviously made the predictions before the season started, and I said when we were doing the NL and AL Rookie of the Years, Corbin Carroll was my NL Rookie of the Year candidate, and it seems as though he is going to win that award. And by him doing what he's doing in the playoffs right now, I think that just basically solidifies him winning that, even though the award doesn't count towards the playoffs. But again, just by watching him, it's so exciting to see him play.
I think the craziest thing about him is he's only 22. Like we've seen this crazy success. He had 285 this year. He had 10 triples, which led the league. 10 triples and 54 stolen bases, which was behind, of course, Acuna and I believe Asturi Ruiz, but some insane numbers for a kid that's 22 years old. He's only played 187 games in the league. He played 32 last year. So, I mean, I remember preseason, we were talking about him. We talked about, what these rookies are looking like. I said Jordan Walker and Anthony Volpe were going to win Rookie of the Year. I was incredibly wrong, so that's okay. But when you look at the preseason things, they talked about Corbin Carroll and they said that he looks like Bryce Harper, but instead of power, he has speed. I don't think that's true at all. I think Corbin Carroll is his own character. I wouldn't go as far to say that he's better than Bryce Harper, but he's been such a legitimate player. I mean, I can't really think of another player, except for honestly Bryce Harper, that has been such an X factor for their team, except Corbin Carroll, who's been insane to watch.
And also, I mean, the power thing, he had 25 homers this year. I mean, that's not Pete Alonso or Aaron Judge or anything, but it's certainly not a guy that doesn't have any power. I mean, hit 25 homers in what is still his rookie season is pretty good. I mean, especially for a guy that isn't known for that. And yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't, first of all, it's not fair to compare anybody to Bryce Harper in any way for, a guy that was having his first full season. But I mean, I do see the similarities in terms of, just the way they play. I get it. I get where they were coming from, but he has some strengths that Harper doesn't have, and Harper has some strengths that he doesn't have. They're different players, and I mean, look, if you look at those numbers, Justin and you've Vincent mentioned it, 54 stolen bases. I mean, that's pretty. Even with these new rules, that's pretty damn good. I mean, there's not much else you could say about that. I mean, this is a rookie we're talking about for a team that obviously is way overperforming everybody's expectations. And without Corbin Carroll, they're nowhere near this level. Honestly, there might not even be a playoff team without Corbin Carroll.
I agree.
Well, I was just going to say, not to mention, he was only caught 5 times stealing as well. So imagine that percentage going 54 out of 59. And, just the efficiency just in that stat alone by Carroll is very impressive. But yeah, to your point, obviously no one can compare Bryce Harper to Corbin Carroll at this stage. Obviously, Corbin Carroll has a whole career ahead of him. We're talking 10 plus years left possibly in Carroll's career, right? And obviously Harper still has many years to go too. So he's not far off there. But, I can definitely see the similarities in some aspects between the two players. But I think it's just way too early to really make that comparison, in my opinion.
I agree. And I think when you look at speedsters in the league, I mean, you could look at, even looking at the past, you look at Billy Hamilton, now you can look at Trey Turner, you look at Ronald Acuna, you look at all of these names. But, I mean, they all, except for Ronald Acuna, they all either had Trey Turner's on the back end of his career. Not at the back end, but he's closing in on the back end of his career. So the first thing to go when you're playing baseball is your speed. At least that's what I think. The first thing to go when you get older is your speed. But you have 8 more solid years of Corbin Carroll. I mean, this team's in the World Series right now, and I'll be honest, they have a lot of places in their lineup where they can upgrade. They have a lot of places in their lineup where they can upgrade. I think they can have a better starting staff. They can have a better bullpen. They can have all these things. But it's been, watching them play right now feels like, I'm not saying that they are the 1995 Yankees, but it feels like we're watching the Yankees. I mean, it's a very exciting time for Arizona and for the Diamondbacks fans. So then next up, it wasn't a hit here. It was a fielder's choice, but Ketel Marte brings in the 3-2 run. He would later get a hit. And then in game 2, again, he would get a hit. He breaks the record for 18 straight postseason games with a hit. He has been insane. And to talk about, I mean, again, I don't want to harp on the idea that there's a lot of better players out there playing right now. But when you look at the bats that were in this playoff, like altogether, Trey Turner, Yordan Alvarez, Adley Rutschman, all these names, Ronald Acuna, did you really think Ketel Marte would be the guy coming out and getting this 18-game hitting streak?
No way.
If you asked me in the beginning of the year, or just, excuse me, in the beginning of the postseason, when all the teams were finalized and all that stuff, Ketel Marte would 100% not be on that list for sure. And, just seeing like what he does like on a daily basis now throughout all the games that he's been involved with in the playoffs, it's just really exciting to see because, like, again, this is not an ordinary guy you would expect to be getting this kind of stat, breaking the record for consecutive postseason games to start your postseason career in general at 18. But that's what the postseason is about. Like unexpected guys stepping up at the biggest moments, in the postseason and doing what they can to help their team. And so, it's just one of those moments again where you see that unexpected guy take over.
And we've seen, sometimes you see these teams that are rebuilt and they always have that lone player there. Like I always say, you guys are both Mets fans, so I don't know who you would necessarily say. I would imagine it would be Pete Alonso, but someone who was there from the start of the rebuild and was there when they were succeeding. Maybe not Pete Alonso, maybe, I don't know.
Nimmo.
Yeah, Brandon Nimmo. Perfect.
Nimmo, yeah.
Like not the best player, but was there from the beginning and has played to a good extent. So I would say Rhys Hoskins for the Phillies. He's kind of been the Rhys Hoskins, Brandon Nimmo type of guy for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He joined the team in 2017. That was their last time in the playoffs. From there, he's played with them the entire time. In 2019, he was an all-star. He's now only 29 years old. So there's still a lot of life left in him. It is so exciting to watch these Diamondbacks play. We'll talk about the Rangers in a second, but again, watching these Diamondbacks play, it's just every day I think like, oh, they're gonna hit a cold streak, they're gonna get a little bit slower, but every time they just look so much like they're building so much. Like they really didn't need this.
Yeah, especially even though they lost game one, and I know we'll get into how that happened. But Zach Gallen didn't have his best stuff, but the lineup didn't fall and collapse. And I think that said a lot because when I'm looking at these two teams in the World Series, I don't know. I just feel obviously they've earned it and everything, but I with the lineup specifically, sometimes I feel like, well, if the pitching isn't there, are they really gonna still hit? And when I saw that the Diamondbacks were still, they it wasn't their fault they lost that game. The lineup, it was the pitching, obviously, but. Guys like Ketel Marte are the reason why they're here. And honestly, this whole playoffs has been, the playoff of the unknown guys, playoff of the, underrated guys. Everybody that's done really well in these playoffs are guys that, are solid players, but aren't Bryce Harpers, aren't the stars of the league. And, it's to me, I really like it. I know maybe Major League Baseball isn't a huge fan because they want the stars to have, the big moments. But to me, as a fan, as diehard, I like those new names coming and being legends in October. I think back to, not that Daniel Murphy's a small name, but Daniel Murphy in 2015, the Mets had the postseason, arguably one of the best postseason seasons ever. And he was a good player, but he had that great moment. And I think that's what you're seeing right now with Ketel Marte, and it's 100% what you're seeing right now with Adolis Garcia, which is a whole nother. If you think Ketel Marte's hot, Adolis Garcia is a whole nother level right now.
Yeah. And you beat me to the point there. I was thinking of Daniel Murphy as well when we were talking about that just now. Like, again, you talk about guys that just come out of nowhere and perform at a whole different level that you never would have thought you've seen from a guy like that. So yeah, to your point, Anthony, like Daniel Murphy is the perfect example of that when comparing him to Marte throughout this postseason. So, he beat me to it, but it was still just a great comparison there. So.
Absolutely. And, it's almost fun because you do get to mix and match all these players with, different kinds of players, older players, newer players that have played in the postseason in the past. And watching, you're right, Daniel Murphy has been a big name, but but I saw a comparison after game one, I believe, or no, it was after game two. It was Adolis Garcia being the X factor for the Rangers and Lenny Dykstra. Lenny Dykstra is like the craziest name to throw out there. He was a Philly.
I did not expect to hear that.
Lenny Dykstra. Like you never even hear that name. Like I've heard Daniel Murphy before. I've heard Bryce Harper's name thrown out there has been a comparison, and like Max Scherzer for starters, but Lenny Dykstra. No comparison. That I haven't really looked at Lenny Dykstra's stats to tell you why I think he would be an X factor, but I just thought it was one of the craziest things put out.
Well, Lenny was a very good postseason hitter. That's what people.
He was.
Forget. But he was also a steroid guy. So
yeah, you forget about that, and that's what the '90s baseball sadly is a little bit plagued with.
Yeah.
But then Mitch Garver walks. We're tied at a 3-3 game. Tommy Pham. they have random players just getting hot at the right time. Evan Carter for the Rangers, Tommy Pham for the Diamondbacks. I know you guys know Tommy Pham, former Met this year. But he only batted 256 this year. He only had 16 home runs. Not a big star-studded player. He's 35 years old, and he's had a couple 4-hit games in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, I'm just happy. Although, like before he got or after he got traded, rather, they obviously had the press conference when he was with Arizona, and one of the things that you saw that was reported how Tommy Pham felt about the Mets, right? In general, talking about how they weren't really a hardworking team, this and that, yada yada yada, and that he said when he first came to Arizona, he's like, this is a team that I want to be a part of. They're obviously fighting for the playoffs. A lot of star talent, young players, and all that. But I just want to say, like, aside from all of that, I'm happy for Tommy Pham. Like he did so many good things when he was with the Mets for the first half of the season. He was their hottest hitter for the first, I'd say, 2 months. He was batting like over 300, doing great things for the team. But aside from the comments that he made after he left the team, I'm happy to see him have a chance to make a run in the playoffs because he's had such a long career, hasn't won a World Series. It's coming to the finish, right? Like I feel like he deserves to make a run at it, and I'm glad to see him do it.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you. Tommy Pham is. Honestly, I'm shocked that he's done as good as he has, and the numbers with the Mets are kind of misleading because he did do very well he was streaky, but he had a lot of clutch hits. He was easily, like you said, our best hitter for a long time. And I personally, just as a Mets fan, I don't have any problem with what he said because he's right. I'm not gonna get on a whole Mets tangent or anything.
I agree with you too. Yeah, no, I agree with that said.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that is probably his last shot. I agree, but he's also been a solid postseason hitter. If you look at the career numbers, he's a career 314 postseason hitter in 28 postseason games. I mean, not Hall of Fame worthy, obviously, but a solid player. And yeah, probably at the end of his rope, he's like 35. So I'm happy for him. I got no problem with him, and I feel like anybody Met fan that does have a problem with him needs to look at themselves in the mirror because what happened this season? I mean, the guy's obviously correct. So it's just stupid.
Yeah. Not saying Mets fans are stupid, but
well, anybody that disagrees and says, "Well, the Mets team this year tried," I think is kind of stupid. I will stand by that.
It's been a fun season for a lot of teams out there, and I think definitely the Mets probably on the back end of that stream.
Nah, don't say that.
Well, Corey Seager in the 9th did what the Phillies could not do, and what really any team hasn't been able to do, and that's beat Paul Sewald's 94-mile-per-hour fastball. That, like, I watched it 4 games, or maybe I think 3 games against the Phillies, just throwing 94 top of the zone, and the Phillies would just swing right through it. Just 94, 93, and they've seen faster pitches. So Corey Seager hits a 94-mile-per-hour fastball and finally is the first player to lift it out and ties up the ball game. I mean, we're going to get to probably what everyone thinks is the most electric moment, but I thought this was the craziest moment in game 1. This is what I thought was like the best part.
Yeah, you talk about like biggest moments there. Of course, like obviously we're going to get to how the game ended later on, but you got to take into consideration how they get there, right? Like that was the hit of, honestly, I would say the postseason. In general, I feel like that was really the big moment that Texas needed to get themselves back into that game. And quickly, I just want to talk about. You mentioned obviously Paul Sewald has been so electric and amazing closing games for Arizona all postseason long. But I don't think he did his scouting report too well because Corey Seager is like a middle to high ball hitter. So anything like that's either right down the middle or just a little bit above the zone, those are the pitches that Corey Seager looks to hit. And if you're going to give him one of those pitches, that's basically like a meatball to him. So, I feel like that's something that obviously Arizona looked at afterwards, when they saw Seager later on down the series. But that's just something that Seager has done his whole career, and that's what he likes to do. And you saw it in the home run derby as well in past times too. Where does the pitcher like to throw him the ball so he can hit a lot of homers in the derby? And that's something that Seawald obviously did not take into consideration when he faced him in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
oh, Anthony, yeah, no, take it away.
For a second, I gotta acknowledge just how funny it is that we keep former Mets keep getting brought up, and we'll keep getting brought up for tonight's game. Anyway, but one thing, if anybody knows anything about Paul Sewald, is you cannot use Paul Sewald too often, or else Paul Sewald's arm will fall off and he will throw, just like you said, Justin, right down the middle batting practice. And Paul Sewald, I'm not taking anything away from the guy, he's been great. But from Torey Lovullo, maybe give the guy a couple of days off. I know that's hard to do in a World Series, and you'll be criticized for not bringing in your guy that's your best guy, but he's been used a lot. And Paul Sewell's also getting older now, and he's got a lot of innings on that arm. And if you want to go through his baseball reference page and look, that dude has a lot of innings. The Mets really used him hard, and so Paul's gotten a lot better since he was with the Mets, but I think it's just kind of the same thing. If you use the guy, which is kind of true with any reliever. I mean, it's kind of unfair to say like it's just only for a Paul Sewald thing, but you use the guy too much, it's going to be an issue. And that at bat to me he should have been out of there. I think I don't know who you put in, but he was throwing batting practice, and it was only a matter of time.
Yeah, and I agree with you as well. Quickly, I know Vid, you want to talk. I just want to say something really quickly again. But I agree with you. Like, yeah, Paul Sewald's usage has been I'd say a little bit too much. But I'm going to ask you this, Anthony: would you rather see another former Met and Miguel Castro try to close out the game?
This is so like every big storyline in this World Series and playoffs almost has been in former Mets. But no, I would not. Miguel Castro is the typical reliever that comes in there, pitches really well, and with 2 outs gives up a crushing homer. I mean, Mets have had 95,000 of those guys, but yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Vince. Enough of the Mets rambling.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. And I've always loved Corey Seager, brother of Kyle Seager, who played for the Mariners for the longest time. But I mean, he's only 26 years old or 29 years old now. He hit 327 this year. Him and Marcus Semien, I would say more Corey Seager, have been like the reason why they're here. Corey's struggled a little bit more in the playoffs. He's only got that one hit in the World Series so far. And last series he had 258, but the series before that and the series before that he was doing really well. So he's always been a name I always love to watch is Corey Seager. So this home run, it's got to be weird for a guy. I mean, you come into Texas. At the time when he came into Texas, he's 28 years old, and you're basically being told you are the person that's going to bring us to the World Series. Like, you are the guy that we need to come up in the clutch. Not Adolis Garcia, not necessarily, not really Marcus Semien. I always thought it's Corey Seager. It's Corey Seager that's what we're looking at. And I know they signed Jacob deGrom, but I feel like when you sign Jacob deGrom, I mean, you guys both know, you got to take into injury consideration. And that's something that Seager has struggled with in the past, but not as much as Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, exactly. Corey Seager is definitely that big offseason acquisition. I liken it kind of to a Lindor type thing, where Lindor was brought in, to be the face of the franchise. Seager just the same, and he's lived up to it. I mean, look at these numbers this season. I mean, 327, 96 RBIs, 6.9 WAR. I mean, he stayed healthy, and obviously having a really good postseason. So he's lived up to the money, and he's to me right now he's the face of the Texas Rangers.
Oh yeah, and I love to see it. I love to see it. So then 2 innings go scoreless. We're in the bottom of the 11th, and Adolis Garcia walks up to the plate, and he just rockets one the opposite field. That was something else. I think Corey Seager's moment was a little bit bigger, tying up the game, but Adolis Garcia, who it wasn't Paul Sewald, former Met, but it was, as you said, Justin, Miguel Castro, who gave up the winning home run, and that's how Texas wins Game 1.
I mean, is anyone shocked? Right, like Adolis Garcia has just been like unreal. Obviously we talked about Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll and this and that, but Adolis Garcia, who I honestly single-handedly took down Houston, in the ALCS, and now he's stepping up in the World Series, right, at age 30 or 31, whatever he is. And again, this was another guy that a few years back no one was really talking about. Like for the past 2 seasons, he's done very well for Texas, but just in general, he's another guy that no one has really talked about. And he steps up in a huge moment here in the bottom half of the inning of the 11th, and he just goes out there and says, "I'm going to do this. I'm gonna be that guy that I've been all postseason long, and I'm just gonna do it." And that's exactly what he did. But if I could do it again, I would have maybe put a little something on that to happen, in that bottom half of the inning. But just nonetheless, like he's just been unbelievable. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, we all know how amazing the guy's been, but just to highlight the stats: 339 batting average, 763 slugging, OPS over 1,000. The guy has 22 RBIs in the 14 playoff games he's played in. You don't get much better. This is Mr. October type of stuff right here, and that's exactly what he's been. And I know that's a high bar to set. Obviously, Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, but he's lived up to it. And after this, the game one, him winning the game for them, it really proved to me that this wasn't a farce. This is real, and he didn't fall off, kind of like Daniel Murphy did at the to reference him again. He stayed the course, and obviously there's still a lot of games to be played. This series could easily go 7, but I don't see him tapering off. I really don't. Honestly, I could see Game 7 him walking it off for them. I really would not be shocked if the game is at home for the Rangers. I'm not sure, but either way, I could see that. I could see him being a crucial part of a win for the Rangers for sure.
I think this was the biggest thing for me, this walk-off. When I think of Texas in the World Series, the first thing I think of is David Freese tying the ball game in the 9th when they were about to get eliminated. Nelson Cruz was in a little bit more so he could get in on the celebration, and the ball goes over his head, right? I think this kind of erases that. I'm not saying that everyone's going to forget about David Freese's legendary postseason, but to go back again into another playoffs and kind of look at how it affects this one, I mean, that was the last time Texas was in the World Series. They get walked off, and then there's another game, and they lose that next game. All the momentum lost. Now, this is game 1, so it doesn't mean as much, but you lose this game, or you win this game, and then you go on to game 2, which they sadly lost. But before we go into game 2, I just want to talk about really quickly, not that big of a deal, but how the pitchers did. This isn't a typical outing, and we've seen it from Gallen before. And Gallen pitched 5 innings, gave up 4 hits and 3 runs while striking out 5. He has a 5.27 ERA in the playoffs right now. On the other hand, Nathan Eovaldi, who has been so good for Texas. I mean, he's been lights out for them. Went 4 2/3, gave up 5 runs, had 8 strikeouts, and gave up the home run to Tommy Pham. It was just a weird pitching outing for both of them. I mean, Gallen struggled since the NLDS ended, and Eovaldi has just been lights out. So, if I'm Texas, are you guys worrying a little bit more about how Eovaldi is going to be in the future? Because they've really needed him a lot.
You can go first, Anthony.
I'm not going to go to the point of worried yet. I mean,
Okay.
It is the World Series, but it's still only one game. And that's, every game in the World Series is obviously huge. But Eovaldi has given me enough, not only this postseason, but a postseason past, enough confidence to say that the lights aren't too bright for him. And also he's not old to like a Max Scherzer, which I do think is too old, but he's not old to the point where I'm worried about him falling apart. Is it concerning? Sure, but am I ready to put oh boy, I gotta be worried. I gotta, Bochy should have his eyes on him. I won't go that far yet, because Eovaldi is a guy they need. I mean, I know Jordan Montgomery's been pitching very well, but still, I maintain Nathan Eovaldi's probably the ace of this staff. And, you need him and Jordan Montgomery to be at their best if you're winning this World Series. I don't care how good Adolis Garcia is. I don't care how good Corey Seager, Evan Carter, or whoever. They could all have the postseasons of their lives. If you're not pitching well, you're not going to win. So I don't know. Nathan Eovaldi, I get it. He can be shaky sometimes, but he's had a ton of postseason success. I still think he's in his prime, and I don't think he's going to be the reason. If the Texas Rangers do lose, I don't think he'll be the reason.
I just think it's like a little bit of like game one World Series like jitters. Like it was a big moment, first game. Like you're pumped up, you're ready to go, but then on the inside, like you're not showing it on the outside. You're feeling as confident as anything. But on the inside, there's obviously some kind of, little bit of nerves for any pitcher, whether it's Gallen or Eovaldi or just anybody in general. So I feel like that kind of got the best of him in his first outing of the World Series. But, again, I agree with you, Anthony. Like, I don't think this is too concerning. I don't think, again, Bruce Bochy's going to be too concerned with how he pitched, because I think deep in his heart, he knows that Eovaldi has been great for them all year. He knows he's going to bounce back when he comes back in, because I'm pretty sure we're going to see him at some point again throughout this World Series, whether he comes out of the pen or he gets another starting job. But, nonetheless, like I agree. Like, I think it was just the nerves got the best of him for game one. But, I don't expect this to carry on for the rest of the series.
I would hope that. I would hope that. I mean, Bruce Bochy is hopefully really hoping on that. They also have Jordan Montgomery, who has done a really good job. But now game two was a little bit more of a blowout. I really wanted to go in depth with game one. Game two, we don't really need to go in as depth as game one. Merrill Kelly pitched amazing. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. I mean, Anthony, we've been talking about these playoffs this entire year. I have said from the beginning, I really don't. I don't trust the Gallen Kelly mix. And the big part I didn't trust was the Kelly. Merrill Kelly, who has been great this playoffs, I keep on saying he's 35 years old. He is 35 years old. Someone that old usually struggles in the playoffs. He's proved me wrong day in and day out. I mean, I'm worried to say that he's going to do bad because then I think, or I'm worried to say that he'll do good because then I think he's going to do bad.
Yeah, I understand. The age is definitely a factor, but also the fact that the guy, it's his first playoff. This is his first time he's ever been in the playoffs, which was really surprising to me. I kind of just had assumed that maybe, but no, the guy's 35 years old and it's his first time in the playoffs. And I'm not. I'll put it this way: I got more confidence in Nathan Eovaldi than I do necessarily in Merrill Kelly, because I'm a guy that goes. Look, you could only really go based off history. We could predict all we want, but we can't tell the future. We can only go based on what guys have done. And Merrill Kelly has put himself a solid resume this postseason, without a doubt. But I need to see a little bit more. I needed to see another start of. I mean, this was a dominant start without a doubt, and this is huge, obviously, for the Diamondbacks. But if he does this, either coming out of the pen or another start, then I'll be ready to say, all right, Merrill Kelly truly is not, a fake postseason guy that pitches well leading up to the World Series, beginning of the World Series, and then blows it. I'm not ready to say that just yet. Am I going on a take that he's gonna blow it? No, he hasn't shown that either. But I wouldn't have, if I'm Lovullo, I don't have full confidence in him. You got to, if it says the 4th, 5th inning, he's got guys on base, I don't trust him. Put it that way. You can't risk anything. You cannot risk anything. And history in the postseason only matters so much when, you only got so many games to win.
I think the funny thing about Merrill Kelly is he's 30 years old, or he's 34 years old, and he's only been playing for 5 years. He got a very late start to his career. He's played with Arizona his entire career, but 34 years old, he's only been in the league for 5 years. So, I mean, you definitely, this is his first playoff experience. It might be his last. He might be put in a very short career, but he's been very solid for this team. Last year was probably his best year. This year wasn't bad at all. I mean, he's really been good, and I've just been a doubter. I've always said, and since the NLCS started, I always said, well, Gallen can do great, but Kelly's going to struggle. It's kind of been the other way around. Gallen's struggling. Kelly's been great. But it's just been so much fun. And not to mention, I mean, we talked about Tommy Pham a little bit ago. Why not talk about him again? 4 for 4. He is the first player since Pablo Sandoval, back in 2013. He becomes the 18th player in World Series history to go 4-for-4 in a game. The first to do so since Pablo Sandoval back in 2012 when he had the 3 home run game at home against Justin Verlander. So, I mean, talk about that. 10 years since the player's gone 4-for-4. I feel like, I mean, that's just crazy to think about. But he's had some legendary stats this playoffs. It's put him in the record books more than once.
Yeah, that just goes to show you how tough the playoffs are, how tough the World Series is. The fact that, and Pablo Sandoval is a name I haven't thought about in a very long time, but Pablo Sandoval is a name that should be thought about when you talk about clutch postseason guys. I feel like his name isn't brought up very often, but it should be. I mean, you talk about, yeah, you go through the list, Pablo Sandoval's up there. And right now, Tommy Pham is, he obviously won't be on that list. He only has the 1 year postseason experience, but
yeah,
he's putting himself on the map. He's putting himself on the map in what, if I were him, I would think about, screw this. If I go out on this, I retire. I don't want to go out on a high note. He's got how much baseball left in him. He's had a solid career. I feel like everybody's kind of forgotten about the whole fantasy football thing now ever since then because he's been so great with good reason. But yeah, he's been everything the Diamondbacks have needed, and it's far from over. But I think he's just on one of those hot stretches that might not stop.
Yeah, and
go ahead,
Justin, take it away. No, because I was going to switch points, so you finish it off.
Oh, well, yeah, no, just one more quick little note when talking about Tommy Pham, but I don't know if you guys noticed, but Tommy Pham, of course, he was 4-for-4 in game 2. He had a chance to come up to go 5-for-5 in the game, but he didn't come up for his 5th at bat. He asked Torey Lovullo to sit down and let Jace Peterson come in and pinch hit.
I love that.
Now,
so
Jace
much.
Peterson, we know he's been around for a very long time. We know that this is a big opportunity for him to get a chance to actually get some World Series action. And so Tommy Pham specifically went up to his manager and said, I want Jace Peterson to take my at bat here late in this game. And I just thought that was just an unbelievable gesture by a guy like him. 2 veteran players, now teammates, of course, who were both moved here at the deadline this season as well. Peterson came over from the A's, but I just thought that was just a really cool moment because who knows how the rest of the series is going to play out. These games could be very close, and Jace Peterson is not really the option that Torey Lovullo would go to in a pinch hitting opportunity. So in a game like this, where it was blown out right from the get-go and giving Peterson a chance to get an at-bat in the World Series, I thought that was just, that was one of the best things I've seen all year long around baseball, I think.
Yeah, it's a great story. And at first, what I loved about the story, it's kind of like the it happened earlier. It happened. The Gunnar Henderson steal when Aaron Hicks ran. And Gunnar Henderson said, well, that's my fault. I read the side was wrong. But actually, it was Aaron Hicks reading the sides wrong. He kind of tipped the bullet. You love to see that. And I loved that, Tommy Pham saw all this hate going to Torey Lovullo. Why would you take him out? There's never been anyone who's gone 5-for-5. But I like Tommy Pham for being like, you want to know what? I've been in this position before. I've never been to the World Series, but I'm in this position right now. I'm a starter. I want to let my buddy get up there and take a swing. Jace Peterson has only had, before that, he only had 4 at-bats in the playoffs. And obviously he doesn't get a hit there. But he scores a run. So I personally love to see it. It's kind of like the small things in baseball. Plus, you're up 9-1. What does it matter at that point? You're almost guaranteed to even up the series at 1 apiece. So a great game once again. Also, not to mention, in game 1, I think it was, Lourdes Gurriel stole a base, so the world gets free tacos, which might be the best promotion in baseball. I don't know.
Consistent promotion too. That thing's been going on for I feel like 15 years. That promotion.
Yeah, wait, did it start in 2016? I think, or was
no,
it?
That's got to be. That has to be at least 12 years old. That promotion. I feel like I've seen that my whole life. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just feels like that anyway.
All right, it started in 2007.
I didn't
even know that. That's kind of crazy. So when the Red Sox won the World Series for their second time, was the first time steal a base, steal a taco. So anyways, series now tied up at 1 apiece. We talked about our predictions before. I said this series is going to go to 7, but I think it's going to be the Rangers. Anthony, I think you said it's going to go to 6, and it'll be the Diamondbacks.
I believe I said that. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right. I still got a good memory up here.
they do.
Now, Justin, we didn't have you on last week, so what are your predictions? Obviously, you have a little bit more of an advantage because you already seen 2 games. But what do you think?
So you said Rangers in 7, Vin, right?
Yes.
And then you said
Diamondbacks
4
in 6.
Diamondbacks. Okay. I'm gonna say 4-2 Rangers.
I like that. So 6 games.
So
6
I
games
want
Rangers.
to have a little bit of a different opinion, so we can come back to this in a later time and not say it's 2 people have the same prediction and this and that. So I wanted to go with something a little different. And of course, to your point, yeah, I have a little bit of a 2-game advantage since it's already 1-1. But yeah, no, I feel
it
like
can't be a sweep, I guess.
yeah, that's for sure. You can't do a sweep, but I still think we're still a long ways ahead of obviously my new prediction. So anything could happen, but I think 4-2 Rangers is a fair opinion.
Yeah, and I totally understand the ratings are very low. We talked about this a little bit last week for this World Series, because it's 2 teams that out of all the fan bases in baseball probably are on the lower end, sadly. But I mean, we've seen some really great moments, and I've been having a fun time watching it, and my Phillies are out of it. So it's been fun to watch. It's fun to see, all these stars that what Anthony and I talked about from our last show was that the one thing about this World Series that we haven't seen in a very long time, there's no star names. I would never take Ketel Marte as a star name compared to Bryce Harper of last year, Jose Altuve for how many years, Mookie Betts or Freddie Freeman, like all of these big names. You always see at least one huge name. And now it's like the biggest name is Evan Longoria, who wants to win a World Series potentially to end his career.
Well, Evan Longoria is like the fielding version of Max Scherzer at this point. It's both way past their prime, and both shouldn't be out there really.
But at least the only reason that Evan Longoria is there is to help the new players kind of figure out he's just the veteran there.
Yeah, he's not starting and giving up 12 runs.
Yeah.
How many runs is Scherzer giving up tonight? We know he's giving up something.
I would honestly say that tonight Scherzer is going to take the loss, and this is why the Diamondbacks will win tonight is because Scherzer's on the mat. I honestly don't want to be rude or anything, but I'd rather see John Gray out there than Max Scherzer.
I think Scherzer gives up a minimum. I say minimum of 3.
I agree.
I agree. I say I'm going to say 4 for mine. It seems like he hit 4 every time. Yeah,
he's going against Brandon Pfaadt, right?
Yes, and we've seen a nice comeback from Pfaadt. I mean, he's really been good these last couple games. He was great in the NLCS. Today it is Max Scherzer against Brendan Pfaadt. So, you should definitely watch the game. And then tomorrow is Halloween night, so you might lose some people there, but great game. And another game in Arizona. Break Friday, we're back. And if necessary, that will be Saturday. So we will definitely be back. Our next show, no matter what, baseball season's over. Which is really crazy to talk about because we've been talking about baseball since the preseason. I mean, we've watched the entire 2023 season pan out. It's been really fun, and every week bringing new news to you. But yes, absolutely.
I haven't been here for most of the episodes, obviously, but I think we can all agree that this season went by pretty fast, right?
It went by pretty fast, but it's been very exciting. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that this has been a very exciting season, but this was probably one of the worst trade deadlines ever. Usually when good seasons come from trade deadlines, and it just really wasn't a good trade deadline this year. But we're coming to the end of our episode. Any final thoughts from either of you
guys? Again, I just want to say thank you again to both of you for allowing me to come back onto the show again. It's been a long time coming. I've always enjoyed talking with you guys about baseball and, just things that go on around the league. And so, I'm happy to be back and, hopefully I'm on again for future episodes, if you ever want me to come back on, I'm always here. I'm one call or one text away. So, you guys
Always
just let me
welcome
know.
on. I got to make fun
Yeah,
of the Giants.
absolutely.
When we do football, I got to make fun of the Giants.
Oh, don't even.
always.
We'll have a Giants point at some point.
Oh boy, don't even get me started on them.
Well, as we come to a close, thank you again for listening to the Walkoff. I've been Vincent Pacone, joined by Justin Randell and Anthony Walsh. Once again, next week we will recap the World Series entirely, and baseball season's over. So we'll talk managerial moves until free agency starts. And once free agency starts, we'll talk more about that. Thank you again for coming. We'll see you next time.